Quinlan had been home, um, and he would go back a couple times here and there to the hospital if he was having seizure issues or infections or anything like that. And when he died, the day he died, we weren't expecting it. He had just come home about a month earlier. He had, I think, a week or two stay because he had some seizure activity happening, and ironically, they had put him back on that original seizure med, and he was having hundreds of subclinical seizures an hour, and they changed his med, and he was doing great. He came home, and we had Christmas with him and New Year's, and it was 5:30 in the morning on January 30th, and we were all home. Him and I were sleeping, and the nurse was taking care of him, and the nurse just started screaming for me and said, "Lindsay, Lindsay, Lindsay, come down here, call 911." And so we ran downstairs, and my sister again was there with us, and we went downstairs, and I knew he was gone. He was completely gray, and the nurse was doing, chest compressions and doing everything he possibly could. And Bear called 911, and they came, and I couldn't see him. I don't know why. I do know why, because who wants to see their child dead? And so Bear and I went downstairs, and my sister, who I swear was a nurse in a previous life, she stayed up there with the paramedics, and I just kept looking up at her, and she would kind of shake her head. And we heard the paddles and the beeping, and they ended up, they transported him to the hospital, and they said, "Do you want to come with us?" And I said, "Go, like, I don't want to be in the way, like, you need to go." And they were walking him out the door, and they were holding him. He didn't have any clothes on, and I remember saying, "He's going to be cold." And I took the blanket and kind of covered him, and didn't realize till after that they didn't bring his ventilator with him. And but that wasn't going through our head. We're sitting there, and I'm just going, what happened? He was okay last night, as stable as he can be. And we called my brother, and he came and picked us up, and the nurse had to stay. He I just kept thinking about him, and they had to question him. And I went to, before we left, I remember going to clean up because there was just stuff everywhere, and they said, "Don't touch anything." And it was like, what is going on? And I remember the ventilator was just beeping, and I said, "Someone shut that thing off." And I remember going over and just like hitting it. And my brother came, and we went to the hospital, and they took us into the room off to the side. And um,
Yeah. So the night before, or sorry, the 2 nights before, um, like I said, everything happens for a reason. God works in mysterious ways. The overnight nurse called out, and we sat up in the evening and decided who was gonna quote unquote take the first shift and second shift. And obviously we didn't know what was gonna happen, but for some strange reason, we both talked about it afterwards. We were closer to him that day, not knowing it, but his hugs were a little tighter. Like, I remember laying there next to him watching TV while he was sleeping, and he reached out and grabbed my hand, and I leaned over, and we cuddled. um and that wouldn't have happened if the night nurse didn't call out. And I look back and I think, I'm glad you called out, because neither of us would have had that moment, you know and that morning when the nurse yelled for her, um We ran downstairs and I grabbed him, and it was he was lifeless. And now I'm in protective mode. So I'm not saying anything to Lindsay, but I know he's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm sure she felt that way, but she still had hope. And I still had hope too, because the ambulance is coming, and I was talking to them on the phone when I called 911 and trying to be as calm as possible, like, hurry up. Like, I'm outside and it's cold. I got no shoes on, shorts and a t-shirt, and I'm up the street waving them in. And when we got to the hospital, um, hey, our son just got brought in. Oh, hey, come with us to this room. I knew, and
Yeah.
again, I didn't want to say anything. And I sat in the room quiet, and I let the doctors tell the news. For the life of me, I didn't want to be the one to tell my wife that news. Um, I don't
We
think I could
knew.
have handled that. We knew,
We knew.
but I just don't think I could have handled those words coming out of my mouth to my wife,
Yeah.
you know. And it was a shock to everybody.